Hey guys, I'm Dave.
And I'm Len.
And today we are reviewing Nuclear Escalation. Who is this from? It says it's from Blade, which is a division of Flying Buffalo. There was originally a game, Nuclear War, and I guess this is a successor to it. Essentially what's going on is you have two ways to harm your opponent, either propaganda or through secrets, or through nuclear warfare. So in the beginning of the game, it's probably best not to play any nukes yet, because once you start playing nukes, you can't play propaganda cards anymore. So the game will start out, people will be playing propaganda and stuff against each other, and it'll allow them to basically take population from the other guy. The game ends when only one person has population cards left. So you might play a propaganda, and it tells you so-and-so made a bad speech, so 2 million people defect to your country or something, so you get those cards. And then later on, when the war starts, you have missiles, and they carry various types of warheads, and you have a B-1 bomber, and you have an orbital platform that can drop nukes from orbit. So the way the game's played is you'll have a number 1 space where you put a card, and then a number 2. And on your turn, you flip the number 1 card, and if it's a missile, you'll put it in like a holding area, and then on the next turn, if the next one you flip over is a warhead, then you get to launch it. And you'll roll a dice whenever you launch a missile, and that'll determine if the missile's destroyed. And the orbital platform, when you get that, you can put as many warheads as you want on it, and it can launch 1 per turn. But once it's out of warheads, then you just discard it and stuff. But strategy, and there's not too much strategy in the game. It's just supposed to meant to be like a fun game. I guess the biggest strategy is knowing when to start the nuclear war. But what do you think of the game?
Oh, knowing when to start the nuclear. It's when you run out of the propaganda cards. That's when you start to. You have no choice in the matter. So.
Well, you can still draw one later, propaganda card, but.
Yeah, because at the beginning, I had like 3 cards in my hand. And it was going well, but then at a certain point, I wasn't getting any. It's like, okay, got to put the missile down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times you get a hand where you got a handful of missiles. But no warheads to use. So
yeah.
If you put a missile card down, it gets revealed, and then the next turn, if you flip over another card and it's not a warhead, well, then your missile gets discarded.
Or a bunch of warheads and no missiles.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting going, I must be the Soviet Union character. This is so disorganized.
We just played this 2-player, but years back I had played this 3, 4, and 4-player, if I recall correctly. It was a lot more fun with 3 or 4 players with because the reason for that being is people will gang up on one guy, so people make like alliances and stuff, whereas when you're playing 2 players, you're just attacking each other. Yeah. Oh, and there's another weird thing in this game. There's something called a cruise missile. A cruise missile, when you put it out, it's basically going around the board. It goes from one player to another, and then the owner of the missile decides when it attacks. Since we're playing 2-player, you just attack them right away because there's no one to go around. But in like a 3 or 4-player game, you got that thing going around. It's kind of cool not knowing who it's going to attack and stuff. But
yeah, but I griped about things like cruise missile was 5 million deaths. I mean, it was more powerful than other warheads. So,
well, you got me on that one.
Yeah, I'm griping about certain things.
And like the MX missile, they gave a megaton warhead to, which is, I don't think they carried warheads that big. I don't think the U.S. really had anything larger than 10 or 20 megatons.
Yeah, because I think we only had, we had the Titans, the MX missile. What was the last big one we built?
The MX, I think it was. That was in the 1980s.
Yeah, and that was at least 10 to 20, I think. They never give you the straight facts.
Yeah, that one, when they were first talking about fielding it, they're like, oh, we're going to put it on railroad cars so no one knows where it is, and it can't be taken out. But they, for budget constraints, they ended up just putting them in silos, which completely defeated the purpose of the MX program.
Yeah, because the MX replaced the Minuteman, and I don't know if we had anything to ever replace the MX, because we started having nuclear treaties, in which actually what we did was started demobilizing surplus missiles, so we didn't have to buy new missiles. Because one of the problems is that the liquid fuel is corrosive, and so the old liquid fuel rockets had a...
Right, but I think some of the later rockets, possibly the Minuteman and the MX, those I think had solid fuel.
Solid fuel.
Yeah.
But the problem with solid fuels, it wears out after, it decays after a while, but no one knows how long that takes. Because we said the problem with ICBMs, they are the most complex weapon system and the least used.
Yeah. Well, I was reading a book that this was in the 1980s, and it was talking about ICBMs, and basically it said at best 15% of the warheads launched from those would reach their target and detonate. That was in the best case scenario. It just had all these scenarios, things that could go wrong with the launches and stuff. Because remember, these are vehicles that go into outer space, and then the MIRV warheads re-enter the atmosphere, and they have to have heat shields on them and stuff when going through the atmosphere. So this is really complex stuff. So
Right.
I mean, maybe his 15% success rate was too high, actually.
Somebody said that he presumes that 50% of missiles won't even make it out of the silos. You'll hit the launch button and...
It's possible. They've been sitting in those silos for decades.
Yeah, it'll start fizzing. Like I said, we don't know about how long the solid fuel lasts. And it could possibly just makes a bunch of smoke and nothing happens.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's good that we didn't. I think that's one of the reasons why no one used the nukes, because no one knew if the things would actually work. Or worse, yours don't work and the other guy's works really good. Or at least, 50% of them work really good.
One thing I'm surprised they didn't have in this game was nuclear-armed submarines.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I mean, those things launch missiles and with a lot of warheads too. Yeah. So,
but I'm not sure whether they're considered a first strike weapon or reserve nuclear weapons. Of course, no one's going to tell me this. They're smart people.
But often in videos I've said some of these games, like modern war games, they'll have a mechanic where you can use a nuke or something, and usually in those games it completely destroys the game. I found in most games nukes just don't add any value and just ruin it. But this and regular nuclear war are the only games really where the nukes are fun. Other than that one where NORAD 2, that one it's fun, but that's because they're all about nuclear warfare. But the ones that are about conventional warfare, and then you start dropping nukes, I don't like those at all.
Yeah, because there are a lot of NATO games where nuclear weapons, actually, chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons are like an optional rule. And they start throwing in things like, outside of heavy casualties, things like if you launch like gas weapons, chemical weapons, units are like stunned, they can't move, or things like that, totally different nature of the game, because we're thinking that possibly if there was really a NATO war in Germany, no nukes, because Russia would want take over a safe West Germany and all their industry, so they probably refrain from the nukes, and would we use them? Big questions.
Yep.
Now that we live in a saner world where no one's fighting, and it's hard to believe how terrified the world was in the old days. I mean,
when I grew up in the 1980s, I mean, people were like seriously worried about nuclear war and stuff. I mean, now no one even thinks about it, but back then people were actually worried it would happen.
I was old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and all I remember is we used to have like fire drills a couple times a day. We would go down to the basement. That was fun. I was like a kid in hope and glory that liked the war.
1970s and 1980s, basically every school had like a sign outside saying "Fallout Shelter" with an arrow pointing to like a basement entrance. This is where you were supposed to go if you heard on the radio that we were going to be nuked or something, and you weren't at home and couldn't go in the basement. So.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like the kid in Hope and Glory who wanted to stay because he was enjoying the war.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, that's all I got. You got anything?
Actually, it's a decent game.
Yep.
It was meant to be a simple, fun game.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings back memories of the old days.
Yeah.
So.